Welcome to Oh Hell No with Nicole.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Oh Hell No podcast. Today we have Ashley Kirkwood. She is an attorney. She is also an entrepreneur, and she has her own show. It's called Passion, Purpose, and Paychecks. Welcome, Ashley. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. So the first thing I want to ask you is, did you always want to be an attorney?
Yeah, so I have always wanted to be an attorney. Since I was a little girl, I think the first career that I had in mind was to be a cardiologist, actually. And then I did not like blood or science. So I think I was like, okay, well, what am I actually good at? And that's talking, debating, and advocating. And so I knew that very early on because I would talk, debate, and advocate all the time. So that was kind of how I was led to the attorney career path. And then, of course, reading and writing, because all I do is read and write. But all we see on TV is lawyers arguing and doing all this cool stuff. So now I'm trying to get back to doing this cool stuff that lawyers do. But for the most part, the first half of my career, I was essentially just writing.
Oh, wow. Okay. So when you got out of law school and you got your first job, was it everything that you thought it would be?
Yeah, so it kind of was. My first job out of law school was at a firm called Kirkwood and Ellis, and I'd worked there in my third year of law school as well. And, you know, it kind of was everything that I thought it would be. And I think it completely skewed my profession or my perception of what large law firm life would be. So Kirkwood is one of the largest law firms in the world. It was extremely competitive to get into. I was the only Black woman in the general litigation department. But it was super dope in that they had so much money. And they kind of let me be myself to the extent that I could as a Black woman. And so, you know, Black woman in an all-white workplace, essentially, I was pretty much myself. And I really, really, really liked it and enjoyed it. So, yeah, I think it pretty much lived up to what I had thought it would be.
Wow. Okay. So coming out of law school, getting your first job and being an attorney, while you were doing that, was there anything else that you wanted to do or that you felt like, okay, I'm doing this, but I'm feeling like maybe my spirit is calling me to do something else?
Absolutely. So one of the things about me, and some people have heard me talk about this before, when I started working at Kirkland, my goal was to do, you know, all the work that they wanted me to do, which was like corporate work, which is why I'm a startup lawyer and entrepreneurship lawyer now. I've always represented companies. But I did a ton of civil rights litigation just because I wanted to, and I did that work pro bono on, you know, kind of like in addition to all the billable obligations that I had, I did civil rights work at the appellate court and at the district court, and I did that because there was something tugging at my heart that was like, dang, I'm making this money, I'm living this corporate life, but I'm not making an impact. And I think that for me, my goal in life, and even now, like I'm reevaluating all the time what my purpose is, but I do know that my ultimate purpose is to make a positive impact on the lives of others. And when I die, you know, not to be morbid, I kind of just want, like, I want people to be at my funeral like, okay, she touched me in this way, or my life was better because I met her in these tangible ways. So that's kind of what drives me now. And I didn't feel that, although it was, you know, it was like a big corporation. And it was good for what big corporations are good for, but it wasn't necessarily the place where I felt like my soul was fed. And that was always something that I was thinking about.
Okay. So tell us, how did you, besides doing this stuff, how did you do more to connect with what you felt like your soul was trying to tell you that, you know, you should get out there and do?
That's a great question. So in addition to doing pro bono work, my husband and I started a nonprofit, and it's called the Kirkwood Foundation. And we started that nonprofit because I would come home from work in my corporate life, and he would come home from work. He works at a nonprofit. And we were like, you know what the issue is? You shouldn't be the only Black woman in your department. You shouldn't be one of the only Black women. I went to like Western Law School. There wasn't a lot of us there either. But a part of what he was saying on his end, working with students, was that students didn't even aspire to be in the position that I was in or in the position that my friends were in, who were, you know, doctors or engineers. And a lot of times their career goals just were they weren't that, right? Their career goals were a lot of the students they fell into like three buckets. A lot of them wanted to do hair, so they wanted to do cosmetology and things like that. They wanted to be nurses in the medical field, but no doctors. No surgeons, none of that, or they wanted to do sports and entertainment. Those are kind of the three buckets that he saw all the time, but he didn't see students saying, you know what, I could be a corporate attorney, I could be a neuroscientist, I could be an aerospace engineer. And so our nonprofit started to increase the amount of African Americans and Latino children who were interested in careers where they could make at least six figures within 3 to 5 years of joining that career. So we started this entire nonprofit, which I will be honest with you and say, I thought, I don't know why, and I know a lot of other people think this, I thought starting a nonprofit was going to be so doable. Like it was just going to be this thing that we did because we were passionate. And I know for a fact it was way more work than I thought it would be. But we did start it, and it's been running for 2 years, and we're growing and expanding this year. We received grant money this year, so we're not just self-funding anymore. But that was another thing that I did because I wanted to do more for the community. I just wanted to touch more people.
Wow. And where is your foundation located?
So we're in Chicago, but we're always thinking of ways to expand. And so we're trying to develop an online platform so we can be in more schools in Chicago and across the United States. But right now we're in 2 high schools in Chicago.
I think that's amazing because I remember being in school and we had a guidance counselor, and that's kind of like the person that you go to help you, figure out what you're supposed to do with your life once you leave high school, right? And looking back, I just feel like it wasn't enough. What they offered wasn't enough. And if you don't have parents who, are really helping you to figure out, what you love, what your passions are, what you're really good at, it's really difficult to, figure out where you're supposed to go. So I love that you guys are doing that. And I think it's amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're really excited about it. And it has been, a labor of love. But I think that every time that I get tired or I'm just kind of like, okay, I cannot keep doing this. This is way too much work with a full-time job and everything else that I do. Every time I see the girls last year we only worked with girls. This year it's co-ed. And my husband actually comes to all the sessions with me, which is super helpful. But every time I see the students, it's like I'm re-energized. So it is a lot of work. But I think when you're doing impact work, it does help to see the people that you're impacting, and it keeps you going.
So tell us, where do you find time to be a full-time, attorney and also chase these other passions that you have? Because, finding the time to balance your life, and you're a wife. I mean, how do you balance this all?
I do not balance it all. I just do. I don't balance. So I think that there's this, I don't balance it all. I do what I can, and I make a lot of mistakes, and I just pray for forgiveness. And I think that I'm getting to a point now where it's like, here's the thing. If you want to do more than one thing, things are going to fall through the cracks unless you have a big team. And right now, I just do not have a large team. So I can't really be everywhere. I can't do everything. One of the things that happened this year, I had a full-time job. So when I was working full-time and doing my side business and, running a nonprofit, it actually, I felt, was a lot easier because one of the issues I never had was money. I never had to worry about, how am I going to make my income? You know what I mean? And so now that I have to focus on the bottom line and look at my sales and make sure that I'm doing things that are making sense financially and always evaluating that, it takes a lot more time. Even though my hours are a little bit better now, it was the benefit, I think, and I love when people ask me oh, should I quit my job? No, don't quit your job. If you can work a full-time job, get the money from it, and still do everything else you want to do on the side, there is no reason to leave your full-time job. Now, if you can't do that, then I think you have to decide whether you want to leave or not. But I really don't balance. I just do what I can that day. And I started doing this too. If I feel like I can't do it, because I'm just what happens with me is I get so overwhelmed by my list of things to do that I just may end up doing nothing. And so when that happens, I kind of just have to push myself to do 2 or 3 things in each of the categories that I have to do them in. And now recently I've been focused a lot more on being a better wife because I want to build my business around my life versus building my life around my business. Because when I was working, I built my life around my work schedule, and that just wasn't healthy because, I was missing time with my husband. I was missing family events. I was not around as much. And now I'm kind of trying to build my business around my life. So I'm trying to implement work hours. I do cook a lot more because I can, and I make my schedule. And when I travel, I always include a +1 in my travel budget for my speaking engagements. And so, my husband can attend. And instead of taking my assistant, I'll take, because you get a +1 for someone to help you with the engagement. So I take him with me, and then I just ask him, does he mind working and helping me selling books and working my tables and stuff? Because I have to that's the only, I guess if I were to balance anything, that's what I've started to implement, is make sure that I have it in the budget to, include my husband, include an assistant if I can, include people that can help me. But things fall through the cracks. That's the truth. I don't know if people tell you that, but the truth is, you do more than one thing. You don't have a whole team. You don't have a up-to-speed assistant and all that other stuff. Things will fall through the cracks.
So, all right. I want to ask this question. So you do these things because, a lot of people do stuff because, they have a dream, they feel passionate about something. Some people do it because they have a dream, they feel passionate, but they want money, and they know that eventually this is going to get them money. You don't seem to be motivated too much by the money because it's something that has pretty much been there since you've started your career. So if you had to drop something off of your plate just because you wanted to, like you said, have more time for your life, could you do that? Is there anything that you would say that, I could let go of this? It's the least important to me?
That's a great question. And I actually just got asked that question because I'm in the running to be a law professor. So, wow. And you're that's the first time I said that publicly. Hey, I feel like
well, you go, girl. Congratulations.
Yeah. And so, if I am a law professor and I go that route, I would probably have to drop something. What I would do, though, is the way that my firm is set up. So I represent entrepreneurs, startup companies, and influencers. But I'm essentially a mobile general counsel, so I provide services via the internet. We talk on Skype, we talk over the phone. I sometimes go to my clients, but it's extremely flexible and fluid such that after I learn their business, I can help them hire other attorneys, and then I manage those attorneys. So it's set up in such a way that I can have 10 or 15 attorneys who are independent contractors who I partner with or work with in some capacity, but I'm not the only person doing the legal work. So that would just be the way that I've structured the business is so that I'm able to do other things, because ultimately it would be amazing for me to have my own nationally syndicated talk show. So everyone tweet the jam and let them know you like seeing me on TV a couple weeks ago so we can get you girl back on. But I would love to do more stuff in media. And so I wouldn't say that I'd give up my firm. I would just restructure some things. And then speaking is something that I control. I love, love, love speaking, so I'd never give it up. I love speaking. I love traveling. I don't know. I think that what I would do instead of giving up either the firm or my speaking engagements is I would restructure everything such that I could bring on a team and handle a team, because that's, as long as you have people, you can kind of do anything.
Mm-hmm. So, Ashley, you're not giving up anything.
Okay, so the one thing I would give up, I wouldn't give up my nonprofit, but eventually my husband will serve in the role as the program director, executive director, which is kind of the role that I'm in now. It'll probably shift to him, and that'll free up a little bit of time, because that's not, he really is the nonprofit guru, and he really should be serving in that capacity. That would be the one thing that we've been working on. Is that's why this year kind of keeps coming on board to take some of that off of my plate, which has been, just really helpful all the way around for sure.
Okay. So Mobile General Counsel, which is Ashley's business, and she has an Instagram page. It's at Mobile General Counsel. And this is basically a business where you can get legal advice on how to start a business. Is that what it is, Ashley?
Yeah, so there's a few different services that we offer for different categories of clients. So for our entrepreneurs, we have what's called our Call with Counsel package. A lot of entrepreneurs don't think about this, but essentially all big businesses have a legal department, and the head of that legal department is called a general counsel. That's the person in that position. So what I do is I provide business and legal advice and counseling for entrepreneurs who can't afford to hire a full-time lawyer for their business. But every business, if you want to grow, should have a lawyer. You should have someone who knows your business, who you can call if shit's the fan, basically. So that's kind of the service that we provide. So for individual entrepreneurs, the call with counsel package is right now it's on a promotion at $350 a month, and that gives you an hour's worth of calls with myself. And we just talk through your legal business strategy to make sure you know where your business needs to be legally protected. You know where your pitfalls are. Even if you don't fix them right away, you know that's where your blind spot is. So we do those assessments, and then we talk monthly to make sure your contracts are good, to make sure that you haven't had any complaints. If you've had someone who hasn't paid and you want counseling on that, you can use that hour any way you'd like. It's really your time to talk with an attorney about your business, and it's helpful in that sense. That's kind of how I work with one-on-one entrepreneurs who really can't afford to get a full 20 hours a month general counsel package. But for startup companies who are funded, they're already profitable, they have between 2 to, some of our clients have 100 employees, then you would be on one of our general counsel packages, meaning that you get between 10 to 20 hours of legal services per month. And you get those services at a flat fee, which means you actually get legal work. In the call with counsel package, you're just having calls with me. But the flat fee legal work allows me to do things like review your contracts, make sure you are trademarked in all the areas that you need to be, review your partnership paperwork to make sure all of that's up to date, ensure that when you're hiring employees, they're on the right package. That's all the work that we do for startup companies, as well as a few other things. We negotiate deals, we make sure that your vendors' agreements are in order. Make sure you have the appropriate language on your website. If you're doing e-commerce, you look at all of that to make sure it's in compliance. And then, so we do an array of services all within the general counsel packages, and then you just buy your hours per month. And if you don't use all your hours in 1 month, they roll over like minutes. So that's the services that we provide startup companies. And then for influencers, I go to negotiate their deals with big brands. So if you're an individual influencer and Dove wants you to market with them, you would call me and we figure out how to negotiate with that brand on your behalf. And either I handle the negotiation, or if you just want me to draft the emails, but it comes from you, then that's your right. Then I'll draft the emails, it'll come from you, and then we work out an arrangement for payment on those deals. And the last category of people that I work with are large corporations, but for them, I don't do legal work. I essentially do, I will do their sexual harassment investigations, but primarily I do their diversity and sexual harassment training. So those are the categories of people that I work with and how I work with them. But it's a way for entrepreneurs and startup companies to get legal services on demand, how they need it. And it's relatively cost efficient.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great business, and that's a great service to have for your business. So how has social media helped you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. So social media has been really helpful for me as an entrepreneur. And it's been helpful in a couple of different ways. In one way, I get a lot of my conference speaking engagements from social media. I also interact with a lot of people who have podcasts, such as yourself, via social media. And then two, there's this legitimacy check that people do now. And it's weird because they don't go to my website, they'll go to my Instagram. And so my personal Instagram is at the Ashley Nicole Show. And that's the Instagram that I started while I was working in corporate to promote my YouTube show, which you can find at passionpurposeandpaychecks.com or theashleynicoleshow.com. So I think social media has helped, one, with me getting speaking engagements. My first ever large paid speaking engagement for a university came from LinkedIn. So I'm really active on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. I need to get my Twitter game up. It's just not there yet. I do not tweet a lot. But because I do legal correspondence, I do need to tweet a lot more, essentially, and, have very fiery opinions on the things that Trump does, but I just haven't gotten there yet. But yeah, it's been super helpful. I think it's been most helpful in terms of speaking engagements. I haven't really gotten a large legal client from social media. I've gotten some individual entrepreneurs, and then of course influencers. I get my influencer clients from Instagram, but essentially it's been helpful for business, more so for getting conference paid speaking engagements.
Okay. So tell us about your show and your passion for, talking and interviewing people and doing it on camera? Because I still have not mastered that or even really attempted it. But what draws you to that platform, putting yourself out there like that?
Well, we should switch because I actually would love to do more podcasting. I think it's far more cost efficient than doing a YouTube show. But like I said earlier, I really would love to inevitably have a nationally syndicated talk show via whatever medium that works out. Because, the way that media is working is changing. But in order to do that, typically you run like a pilot to show producers that you're good on camera and you're good on air. So I invested a lot of money in the Ashley Nicole show. And essentially I interviewed entrepreneurs who left their 9-to-5 to do something that they were passionate about. And I mean, we hired producers, we hired a videographer, we hired a makeup artist who's a bomb. Her name's Yogi. I definitely recommend her for people in Chicago and Atlanta. She's so good. But we had a whole team. I think it was like 5 or 6 people on my team. Week to week, people would source and find interviews. And it was great for me getting experience on camera. It was also really good for me to take the time and learn, like, to stay within, like, keep my talking points short and to the point. It was really, really, really helpful, but it was extremely expensive. So now we're looking to kind of repurpose the show in a way that's a little more cost efficient, that still does the same job of, like, telling stories of really impactful, influential people. And I've done a lot of that now through live events too. But it was something that I did while I had my 9-to-5 because I wanted to interview people who made the jump. And I wanted to know how much they had saved. I wanted to know, what businesses were making the most money. I wanted to know when they became profitable. How long did it take them to become profitable? What does profitability mean to them? And so it was a great way for me to dig in and expand my network beyond just lawyers, because lawyers have a bad habit of only talking to lawyers. And it does not make for the most exciting life. But it's kind of like out of necessity. But I wanted to start learning more about entrepreneurship, and the only way to do that would be to talk to entrepreneurs. So that's why the show started. And now it's kind of converted to be a little bit more of like my thoughts, my ideas. And so I'm trying to get my voice a little bit more infused in the show. Because when I was interviewing people, it would be far more about their story, and I'd be super engrossed in their story. And so most people would watch for their stories. But I had people that would write in like, oh, we want to know what you think about things. And while you have a 9-to-5, it's very difficult to have a strong brand voice while you have a 9-to-5, such as mine, because mine was very restrictive in what I said, what I did. I wasn't like free, essentially. Mm-hmm. So now that I'm free, I want to like repurpose the show and like get more of my voice infused within the show and my thoughts, things like that. So people can kind of get to know me a little bit more than they've been able to with me being, kind of locked down on the farm, so to speak.
How do you feel like having that show is part of your purpose? How are you serving in that way?
Yeah, so I think one of the ways is like that show, if you look at the interviews, they're long. They're very long. But if you look at the interviews at the AshleyNicoleShow.com, you'll see that they give really, really good information. And so we have people who talk about everything from, how they found their partner in business to how they got equity crowdfunding to when they knew it was time for them to pivot in business. So it's just it's like a resource. It's obviously free. It's all on YouTube. And it's just free information about how to hack it as an entrepreneur and what it takes. And you can see people from all walks of life. A lot of our interviewees were very diverse. You can kind of see how they've made it and how they had the courage to live their dreams and kind of leave that stable corporate lifestyle. So I'm hoping that can serve. I'm not going to ever take it down. So hopefully that can serve as a resource for entrepreneurs who just need to know, like, how did people find their passions? How did they leave their paychecks? And how are they getting paid doing something that they actually love? And how hard is it? Because I don't think people talk about, the difficulties, but a lot of my guests, like, we have guests that have cried on that show. It is like Oprah's couch. Like, if you look at that show, there are 2 interviews in particular where I end up crying. Like, people just when people share their heart with you, you feel it. And so there are a few interviews, one of this woman who owns her own publishing company and a woman who has her own event planning company. They're the 2 probably longest interviews. They were the most in-depth in terms of how being an entrepreneur helps their lives and how they're just very raw, displays of what it takes to last in this game.
Yeah, it definitely does. I love shows like that because I just love, listening to how people make things happen. So
Yeah,
I,
me too.
yeah, it's amazing. So, with all of this stuff that you have going on, when you sit down and think about what your purpose is here or what you should be doing, what do you come up with? Because you got your hands in a lot, and it's okay because we can all have so many different passions. I'm similar to you. I have a lot of things going on myself, but when you sit back and think about your purpose, or if you're living a purpose driven life or whatever, what do you think the main thing is that you're supposed to be doing?
Yeah. So my purpose, if I were to condense it all down, like what it all points back to, is educating people through knowledge. Okay. Like one of the women that I follow, her name is Kate and K Consulting on Instagram, or the Bianca Experience. She has this Facebook group called No Fluff, All Facts. And I really like that because what I do is whether it's through my law firm, Mobile General Counsel, or through my show, the Ashley Nicole Show, or I have a book called The Law School Hustle. What I'm doing is educating people on how they can do what I've already done, or how they can discover what they need to do in this life. And so what I do is educate through specifics, through honesty, and through resources that people can then take, listen to, and do something for themselves with it. Because I go to a lot of events, and I love when speakers are speaking and they're selling things, they're doing this, they're doing that. That's all cute and fine. What I like to do when I speak is talk to the audience and arm them with the knowledge that they need to leave wherever we're at, wherever we are interacting, where they can go back to their homes and be like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do next. So I think like that's always my goal. So through the firm, what I do is call with counsel is educate. Through my book, The Law School Hustle, I literally give students a step-by-step guide on how to go to law school, how to get a job at a top firm, and how to get outside scholarships. So I want everything that I put out into the world to be educational. I don't want it to just look good and have no substance. So I think like educating people through the legal knowledge that I have and the academic background that I have is literally what I'm put on this earth to do, because not everyone can get in the doors that I've gotten in, and not everyone will have the same experiences as me. But if I can lend people those experiences by way of a speaking engagement, a book, a talk, a product, then that will make me feel like I'm doing what I'm put on this earth to do, educating and empowering others.
Nice. Love it. Okay. So, this is the Oh Hell No podcast. So you have to share an oh hell no moment. It could be from something personal, something professional, anything you want, but it has to be a moment that, taught you a lesson, and, or something that you taught someone else a lesson, because you were like, oh, hell no, I ain't doing that. So let us know.
That's I knew this question was coming. I think that's like the name of your podcast is what initially drew me to it. It's such a good name.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my oh hell no moment, and I thought about this, and I was like, should I share this? Because this really is a hell no moment. But my moment would be when I went to Kirkland, really liked it, decent firm, good firm. Then I went to another firm, okay, and this was not a good experience for me. And of course, I was the only Black woman in my group. That's typical. But I had spoken up about a diversity issue. I basically went to the woman who I was working for, and I was like, hey, I found out I'd be the fourth woman of color to leave your employ within a year if I were to leave. So what's up? Why you couldn't keep none of my sisters? I mean, I didn't say it like that, but I essentially said it in some politically correct way, like, what's going on with this pattern? How can we avoid it? And this woman's response, she's a white woman. Her response was, there's white men who can't work for me either. And I was like, oh, that ain't the response, boo.
Right.
So essentially, after that, I had spoke to some other people in the firm about it. I was like, this is really uncomfortable. I don't know what's going on. And their response to me was like, oh, we're going to just accept your resignation.
Wow.
And so I know, right? It's like it never happens. And so I was like, good luck, because I didn't give one. And so they were like, we're going to accept your resignation. It was like this back and forth standoff thing. But, inevitably, I was like, if you want to fire the kid, then fire the kid. Be direct, though. You know what I mean? You don't have to boot around the bush. But they didn't, of course, they claimed that, they're going to accept the resignation that I never tendered. And so that's the biggest, no moment I've ever had in my career.
My God.
Because, you work so hard, you come credentialed, no one works for that. And it was surprising because it's 2019. And so I tell people all the time, people are like, when I speak about this, people tell me their initial response is always like, oh my God, you're so brave for talking about this publicly. Literally, I've done an interview with a reporter about it, and she was like, I can't believe you're doing this. I've never had an attorney be bold enough. Because I named names,
Mm-hmm.
I sure did. So they will learn today. But literally, they're always like, you're so brave. But for me, I look a lot to Thurgood Marshall. But, Thurgood Marshall, Clarence Thomas, they're the only, Black Supreme Court justices that we've had. And when Thurgood Marshall was a lawyer, he worked for the NAACP. And he literally tried cases that he could have gotten killed over or lynched over. And he did it anyway. And so for me, speaking out about discrimination at a firm that I experienced is kind of not that big of a risk. I'm not worried about getting lynched for this. But I do think that it's important for me to speak out, not because I'm angry at them, because honestly, I'm doing a lot better now, but because I don't want other young women who are in corporate America dealing with discrimination, implicit bias, and racism to think that it doesn't happen, or to think that it's only happening to them because they're not good enough or they're not credentialed enough. Because I came highly credentialed, top of my class from Northwestern Law, did the stuff they tell you to do. And this was still the response from a question, from inquiring about justice in the workplace. And so I think for me, it's I don't think this is brave to speak about it. I do think it's necessary because I don't think that we as Black people or any woman, any people of color or a disenfranchised group should have to deal with the crap that we still deal with in the workplace. If you want to stay in the workplace, you should be able to stay in the workplace, collect your coin, and not deal with any crap. And if you deal with crap, you should be able to inquire about it and call people on their stuff. But the reality is, if you do that, there are typically consequences. This whole thing was also ironic because I was in the employment discrimination group. So I was like, I literally did employment discrimination.
That's crazy.
This was textbook retaliation. And so it was just odd, the order of events. But it still happens in in this day and age. This is what happens.
Wow. So if you could give young Black people or young people of color, whatever they are, advice about going into the working world and being the only of your kind, and how to navigate those waters, what would you say to them?
I would say you have to make a choice. And it sucks because I was told this advice as well. I think there's two trains of thought. One is, I can tell you how to make it in the workplace as a Black person and rise to the top, because this is what I've seen done over and over and over again. If you go in, put your head down, do your work, make the right connections, when people say things that are discriminatory, if you swallow your voice, then you should have no problem. But if there's just something inside you that does not permit you to swallow your voice, then you have to be prepared for the nuclear option, which is you can still get fired in 2018 for speaking out against diversity issues in the workplace. And there's ways that these companies do it. And I know because I literally was an employment lawyer and I would see there's any number of ways for you to be terminated as an employee. So it's tough, right? Because the advice I'd want to give would be hey, speak your mind, fight the power. But I don't know what your financial situation is. See, for me, I will be honest and say, we had our contingency was either I had another job offer. I could go back to another firm. But the other contingency was me being an entrepreneur. And I was always entrepreneurial and knew that I could make money on my own. Now, if you don't have that, I think you do have to be careful about how you move through the workplace. So the best advice I could give would be go somewhere where you feel like yourself during the interview process. And we all know how that feels. When you walk into an interview, if you feel comfortable wearing your hair the way you want it, if you feel comfortable, talking the way that you're comfortable talking, if you like the person that you're interviewing with, that's important. But two, you need a really strong ally. And you need an ally that's stronger than the racism that you're going to face in that workplace. And I did not have that at my last firm. Now, my first firm, I had a lot of allies, and they were strong. And so when I brought up diversity issues there too, but they handled it so well. They weren't, they were just better in a lot of ways, but they knew how to handle when, a Black person has an issue. There were like processes and systems in place. The other thing you can do is talk to former employees of color of that place. Now the trick is you got to hope that they're going to give you the real, because I talked to people beforehand and they did tell me that this particular woman was not a good person to work for, but they didn't tell me exactly how bad. And so I think you just want to find people like multiple people. And I say former employees because they're going to be more willing to give you the honest truth about what's going on there. Current employees sometimes can drink the Kool-Aid and not be as loyal. Like for me, since I had a good experience at my first workplace, when people ask me about it, it's normally positive. I just don't have much. I didn't have a negative experience. So it's really hard for me to say anything negative about it. It's just difficult to do. But I do think that if you can find some former employees who will talk to you, then that's the way to go. If you can go somewhere where you feel comfortable, that's the way to go. If you can work in a diverse environment, like a racially diverse environment, then that's the way to go. Like, it is horrible that I was the only one. Now, at my first firm, there are other Black women, I think, in the general litigation group, which is great. But, getting 10% Black people at a company is not good. But it's still seen as really, really good in 2018, depending on the company. So to the extent that you can work somewhere where diversity isn't a foreign thing, that would be great. But you should also talk to the current employees who are of color and see whether they're comfortable speaking out. Because if they're not, then let me tell you this. When people of color do not speak out and they rise through the ranks of a company, they condition the other employees that are there that are not of color to believe that is how we all act. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's the danger of being the silent,
right,
African-American person at a company.
Yeah.
If you never speak out, then Billy, Sarah, and Sue are looking at me like, oh, she's a Black Panther. What's wrong with her? Why is she always unhappy?
Right.
And it's because you never used your voice. So, but I always try not to put that burden on us, because it's not like we messed up the system to begin with. So we shouldn't have to risk our job. But it does suck, and you can tell.
All right. So, Ashley, tell us where we can find your book. Tell us where we can follow you on the Instagram, on Facebook, all of those great things.
Definitely. So you can find my book and all information about me at theashleynicoleshow.com. And that will be, my book you can find at thelawschoolhustle.com. And the name of the book is The Law School Hustle. It's also available on Instagram. So if you're thinking about going to law school, but you're not sure, or if you're in law school and just want to know how to kill it, then go to thelawschoolhustle.com. You can find out about me and my speaking engagements and my show at theashleynicoleshow.com. And then there's a tab on there that says All Things Ashley Nicole. And on that link, you can find out about my firm, book a session with me, and learn about my upcoming events. And then you can also go to my firm website, mobilejournalcounsel.com, if you just want legal services. Then, go to mobilejournalcounsel.com. So I try to make it pretty, everything's kind of the name.com, if that makes sense. But if you're in Atlanta, I don't know when this will go live, but on November 1st, I'm having an event in Atlanta called Wine to Counsel. So if you're in Atlanta, you can also go to winetocounsel.eventbrite.com and get tickets to that. So that'll be a fun event. People can come and literally we'll have wine, and you can also bring your legal problems, and we'll do a fun legal workshop for creative entrepreneurs.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed getting to know you, and I wish you all the best with your upcoming ventures.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to listen more to the podcast.
Thank you.